which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming to the May 12th, 2014 meeting of the Morongo Basin Municipal Advisory Council. Would Secretary Rossi please do a roll call?
When you hear your last name, please say present. Dugan?
Present.
Carmen?
Here.
Lundquist?
Present.
Lipsitz?
Present.
Suarez?
Present.
Rossi? Present. Peach?
Here.
Tuttle?
Present.
Parrott?
Here.
Thank you.
And adoption of the agenda. I'm sure everyone's had a chance to look at it. If there aren't any objections, we will. Hearing none, we'll accept the agenda as is. Thank you. Okay. And approval of prior minutes. Forgive me, hi. If your minutes have some slight edits that if the ones you received tonight are slightly updated from what you saw in the mail, and blame it on Google Drive. Any corrections to the minutes? And we thank Shirley Lundquist over at the table, at the press table over here, for taking those minutes. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you. Appreciate you volunteering your time. Okay. With no changes, then we have Max Rossi. Oh, you're taking notes. You know that you were. We approve the minutes of the last meeting. And with that, we'll move to public comment. I know we started new last month, the comment cards. So if you wanted to speak either on an item on the agenda or not, if you'd pick up one of these cards over here on the table and fill it out, we would appreciate it. I only received one so far, so if there are any others and you hadn't turned them in, we'll take them. Okay. This is going to be a quick meeting. I have one, and it's from Margot Sturgis.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Are these on?
Is that the green light on there?
No, I don't see the green light. Hold on a second. I don't have my glasses on.
I turned it on. There you go. There you go.
I'll go over here. All right. Yes, my name is Margot Sturgis, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on public comment. One of the most important things on the agenda, which will come up later on, is the representation of Desert Heights. And I'm bringing that up because I know that in the manual, in the MAC manual, it states that the representatives should be from the community, but it doesn't really spell out any specifics. I would think that a person representing the community, number one, would be in the same zip code. Number two, would be in the same voting district. Number three, would attend some of the community events or the association fundraisers and what have you. And number five, be able to vote in that community, the voter card representing that community. So with all that out there, there's not one person from Yucca Mesa that meets those particular standards, or at least minimum expectations. So I'm hoping that what will happen is that while you're considering representation for Desert Heights, which I do believe the folks need some help and we need representation, I also would like to see some representation for Yucca Mesa. I am not advocating that anybody be removed from the dais. I know that Mr. Supervisor James Ramos can add to the number of folks sitting up there. It might be a little bit of a crunch, but I know he can do that because after all, there are two people that are from the Joshua Tree area, so that sets a precedence. So anyway, that's what I would like to see. The folks out there do not feel that they have any representation, and therefore I'm just asking for that consideration on their behalf. Thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you for being here this evening. Bye now.
Thank you for your comments. I think we have established Elizabeth Carmen represents the Mesa. Any other public comments? I don't have any other cards. Okay, moving right along to public safety reports. And first up, everyone has been used to seeing Lieutenant Russ Wilkie speak on behalf of Morongo Basin Sheriff's Station. And we are honored tonight to have our new Captain Mondary. I want to say, I'm sorry, is it Dale. Sorry, I lost it. Dale Mondary is here instead, and I think he'll be here from here on out. So we're really glad to have you and look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you, and don't worry about the name. I've been in law enforcement for over 30 years and have been called just about everything, so I can answer to that. I don't really have a report for you. I just wanted to come reintroduce myself to those of you who may not know me. I have been a resident of the Morongo Basin for over 20 years. I have held, now that I've been appointed the captain, I have held every position available at that station, from Deputy 1 or the jail deputy all the way up to now the commander. And just briefly, I've told all of my staff, so publicly people know what my stance is, my philosophies. You know, obviously we want to focus on public safety and quality of life, and that we have to set the example. Specifically with driving, and I know that Lieutenant Wilkie has discussed this probably on more than one occasion, but and there are certain things of the vehicle code that people may not be aware of that law enforcement are exempt from. So sometimes if you might see a deputy talking on their cell phone, if they are actually talking with a party to a crime that they're going to, they're exempt from the cell phone laws within certain parameters. But I've spoken with all of my supervisory staff and let them know, hey, we have to set the example. It's not a good example when we're driving down the road talking on our cell phone, and maybe we're talking to a victim that we're looking for their lost child, or it's a burglary in progress, but nobody knows that when all they see is a deputy talking on their cell phone, and 2 minutes later they're getting pulled over and getting a citation for the same thing. So we want, you know, I just want safe driving mainly out of our folks. We set the example, and I know I've done that as well. Have talked on my cell phone. I've met a number, when I was commuting back and forth from San Bernardino, I met a number of California Highway Patrol's finest out here as they were pulling me over to have a chat with me before I got Bluetooth in my car. So, you know, we do want to set the example, and I just don't want to have any more of incidents that we have had recently, and I cannot stress enough, you know, the worst day in my law enforcement career, June 22nd of 2005, when I got a phone call about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and had to drive over to 29 Palms and pick up Michelle and Brooke Garapi and take them to the hospital and explain to them that their husband and father was killed in a single vehicle traffic accident. And I've told our folks, I'm not doing that again. So we're going to drive safe, and we're going to set the example, or unfortunately we will make an example out of them. So you know, we want to instill confidence in the public that, you know, that we're, you know, doing everything that we can to make sure that everything is safe, and quality of life is important to me. I know I've talked to a number of people, and one in the audience here today, sometimes it's just minor little things in our big picture, you know, and they realize it's a minor thing, but to you, it can be a major thing. And so that's gonna be our focus, is, you know, obviously public safety and quality of life issues. So, and also, and I was speaking with one of the members about our staffing and our staffing levels, and our Sheriff John McMahon is very well aware of this, and he is actually cut some upper positions or left some positions at the top of our food chain, if you will, and left them vacant. And he's actually putting 15 additional deputies out on patrol in the unincorporated areas in the county. We're getting 2 of those positions. One we have already gotten. The other one we're going to get sometime during the next fiscal year. So he completely understands the need for additional patrol deputies. And you know, like they said, well, is that enough? To me, it's never enough. You know, I'd like to put a cop on every street corner, and then I'm sure our crime rate would plummet. But we know that's not reality. But, you know, getting those 2 additional bodies that the sheriff has really committed to this community is going to be a great thing for us. And so we're very happy about that. And unless anybody's got any questions.
Any questions from the dais? And from the audience? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. My name is Tom Austin. If we should see, in our opinion, what we perceive to be a infraction by a deputy, how should we go about reporting that?
You could actually call the sheriff's station and ask to speak to the watch commander. And let them know, and we should be able. I know this sounds silly. Sometimes we can't give you an explanation of what we have done, but we should be able to give you an explanation if somebody's exceeding the speed limit. And maybe they don't have their lights and siren on. We should be able to give you an explanation for that what types of calls. And frankly, there are some types of calls that we do have to drive in excess of the speed limit, and that we may not want to turn our lights and siren on. Simply because we may not want to alert somebody that we're actually in the area. And I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but there's tactical advantages to doing that at times. But those are unusual circumstances. It shouldn't be an everyday thing. But yeah, if you just call the sheriff's station, 366-4175, and ask to talk to the watch commander.
Thank you, sir.
Other questions? Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Captain Monday. Look forward to seeing you next month. And from the California Highway Patrol, we have Public Information Officer Joan Griffin, and is it Lieutenant Green?
Sergeant Bill Green.
Sergeant Bill Green, thank you, I'm sorry.
I just kind of showed support our Public Information Officer tonight, and on behalf of Lieutenant Dan DeLong, who was unable to be here, he's on vacation, but if you have any questions that might need to be fielded my way, I'll be here. Yes, sir. Mike? Is that better? Is this one working?
No.
No. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so if you have any questions that you might have, but wanted to kind of waive my time to Officer Griffin, who had some public safety stuff on motorcycles.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us here tonight. As some of you may have heard, May is Motorcycle Safety Month, and we'd like to take this time to remind drivers of some things that we can do out there while we're driving around. Fatal collisions involving motorcyclists have been increasing in California, and we need to do something about it. We all need to work together to make that happen. So I'd like to offer 10 things that car, truck, and bus drivers should know about motorcycles. Number 1, over half of all fatal motorcycle crashes involve another vehicle. Because of its small size, a motorcycle can be easily hidden in a car's blind spots or masked by objects or backgrounds outside a car, such as bushes and fences. Because of its small size, a motorcycle may look farther away than it is. It may be difficult to judge a motorcycle's speed, so be extra careful when you're pulling out into traffic. Motorcyclists often slow down by downshifting or merely rolling off the throttle. They don't necessarily use their brake, so be aware of that. Allow yourself more following distance. Motorcyclists often adjust position within a lane to be more easily and to be seen more easily and to minimize the effects of road debris, passing vehicles, and wind. Turn signals on a motorcycle usually are not self-canceling, which means they don't shut off on their own. And usually new drivers will forget to turn them off. So just because the motorcycle has their turn signal on doesn't necessarily mean that they intend to turn. Please be patient with that. Maneuverability is one of a motorcycle's better characteristics, especially at slower speeds and with good road conditions, but don't always expect a motorcyclist to always be able to get out of the way. Stopping distance for motorcycles is nearly the same as for cars, but slippery pavement, such as ice and rainy conditions, will make stopping quickly more difficult. When a motorcycle is in motion, see more than the motorcycle. See the person under the helmet. It could be a family member, a friend. It's certainly someone's family member. Lane splitting, this is something that we get a lot of questions on. Lane splitting, done safe, is legal in California. So motorcycles are allowed to share lanes and lane split, share lanes. They are allowed to do that as long as it's done in a safe manner. Do we have anyone here who rides motorcycles? Okay, well then I have some tips for you. Please obey the speed limit. Excess speed is the most common rider-related factor in fatal motorcycle crashes. Don't drink and ride. Driving under the influence is one of the leading causes of motorcycle crashes. Inspect your motorcycle's equipment prior to riding. Postpone your trip if weather or road conditions are bad. Look ahead. Just keep your eyes as far ahead as you can see to be alert for road hazards which could cause you to lose control. Practice your riding skills every time you ride and develop good braking habits. Avoid sudden starts, stops, and turns. Wear safety gear every time you ride, even if it's down the street. Every time. And that means a helmet and eye protection. Consider wearing brightly colored clothing to make you more visible, or some type of reflective vest. Make eye contact with drivers when possible to avoid being hit and anticipate that drivers do not see you. Watch out for other motorists turning left across your path. So cars turning in front of you. This is a primary cause of crashes between motorcycles and other vehicles. Always plan an escape route. Create a space cushion whenever possible. Do not tailgate or follow too closely. Stay out of blind spots and don't pass big rigs on the right. They can't see you. Be sure that you have a proper license from the DMV. And take a motorcycle safety course. Even if you've taken one in the past and you've been riding for 10, 15 years, it's always good to go do that again. Does anyone have any questions for us tonight about anything I've said or anything else? I'd like to also remind everyone tomorrow night we're holding one of our Start Smart teen driver classes. I have a few slots available. I have 3 left. So if anyone has a teen between the ages of 14 and 18 who would like to attend that class. Go ahead.
Where's the closest motorcycle safety class?
I can give you an address, an email, a web address, so that you can find that. Actually, I'll just say it out loud. That way everyone has it. You can go to www.ca- so a dash mark, msp.org. Or you can call 1-877 Ride 411. And then on Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the 29 Palms Town Hall, we're going to be having one of our Age Well Drive Smart classes. You do not need to sign up for that. You just show up. And on Thursday at 10 o'clock at the Yucca Valley Senior Center, we're going to be also having an Age Well Drive Smart class. Is anyone? Yes, sir.
What's the age limit on the teenager?
It's geared towards 14 to 18-year-old kids. They don't have to have their license yet. They can come more than once. It's a free class. It's just a class that you would attend with your child, though. Okay. And you have to sign up in advance. If you call the office and ask for me, it's 760-366, what's our number? 3707, and ask for Joan Griffin. I'll sign you up. We do have one tomorrow night at the CHP office. Starts at 6 o'clock. Usually get done about 8 o'clock. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you clarify lane splitting?
Yes. So lane splitting, sometimes you'll see a motorcycle, two cars riding side by side, and a motorcycle will go between the cars. That's allowed in California. As long as it's done safely. We don't recommend you doing that on a motorcycle more than 10 miles an hour faster than the traffic. So if a car is going 20 miles an hour, don't go any faster than 30 to pass that vehicle. You also shouldn't do it at more than 30 miles an hour.
So all the vehicles can be in motion.
That's correct.
So if two cars were doing 45 on 62, a motorcycle can go in between them doing 55.
As long as it's done in a safe and prudent manner. In California, absolutely. A lot of people don't realize that. When I came to California, I didn't realize it either. And I thought it was illegal.
But it's also, we don't recommend anything over 35 miles.
So, and it's legal if there's two cars at a stoplight, then a motorcycle can go in between them to
Absolutely.
take off first?
Yes.
Okay.
And
who's responsible? Is the motorcyclist defensive or offensive? Meaning, if the person in the car really doesn't see them until all of a sudden they hear them, and if they were changing lanes or something and they hit that motorcycle.
we always recommend that is an advanced riding skill. Should be done by advanced motorcycle riders. Brand new riders shouldn't do it. And usually the duty is on the passer to be safe, to you know, everyone needs to be safe.
Well,
right, but the duty's typically on the passer.
No, some of these young kids.
We're all
those kids.
Yeah, I know that.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to volunteer a little more information on lane splitting and the highway patrol doing better. I was pulled over in 1975 for doing 58 miles per hour on the number 3 lane on the Interstate 5. And when I was pulled over, the officer, the highway patrol officer, was trying to tell me that the bus that was passing me to the left, which was a Greyhound, had better stopping capabilities than my production 500 motorcycle, which was wrong. So CHP's doing better. As far as lane splitting goes, on freeways, it's much safer to be lane splitting than putting yourself between two bumpers of a car, because the cars do not gauge what a motorcycle is doing and they'll squish you. So you're actually safer lane splitting on the highways, interstates. As far as the highway out here, I don't know about lane splitting on this. And I agree the differential should be about 5 to 10 miles per hour at the moment.
Anyone else? Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Get some to add.
Actually, I just have a statement, but I forgot to mention.
And I saw that you put 4 minutes by my name. That's just not going to work for me. So just so you know, I would like to remind everybody. Actually, your question keyed on it, and I forgot to mention this before I left. That May is Law Enforcement Recognition, Memorial, and Appreciation Month. So if you see us driving around with little blue stickers on our car or off the antennas or even off of our badges, that's why. So along the same lines, if you want to call and complain about something, which you know is okay, if we're doing something well out of the ordinary as well, you can call and actually tell the watch commanders that as well, especially during May. So thank you.
Monday, I have a question. Is that why we see the flags at half-mast this last week?
Today, I believe was it LAPD? LAPD lost another officer last week, so that's why they're at half staff. Now the sheriff is actually in Washington D.C. because it's National Law Enforcement Week. They're doing a lot of things at the memorial in Washington D.C. and the sheriff is back participating in those events this week. So.
Thank you. And next is our report. Our presentation is from the San Bernardino County Fire, and again, Google Drive promises that Battalion Chief Steve Lassiter will be giving the presentation. So my apologies to Division Chief Dave Benfield. Thanks for coming out. And Steve is the one who promised this was going to take 40 minutes, and Officer Division Chief Benefield says it would be closer to 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, get ready. Otherwise, we'll be going home real early.
You want me to kill two birds with one stone here, right? Do our report and then my presentation, is that correct?
That's it.
Okay, can you all hear me okay? I'm not going to do this. I can't. How's that? Is that better? We're good? Okay. My name's Dave Benfield. I'm the Division Chief for San Bernardino County Fire for this zone, Zone 5. The zone that I'm responsible for basically encompasses from the Morongo Valley all the way to the Colorado River. There's about 12 stations in that zone that I'm responsible for. So I'm pretty much responsible for everything that's fire in this whole area, other than the city of 29 Palms and the Marine base. So it's a challenge with. I'm gonna talk about staffing in a little bit. It's quite the challenge to be responsible for such a large area with very limited resources, and I'll get into that here. So anyways, glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. Normally you have one of my battalion chiefs here, and it'll probably be that way most of the time. I usually have a calendar conflict where I have to be in 2 places at once. So a lot of times I can't be here, but I'm glad to be able to be here, make it here tonight. The report, as far as the stats go, keep in mind these numbers encompass Yucca Mesa, Landers, Johnson Valley, Joshua Tree, and Wonder Valley, not Yucca Valley. These numbers would be dramatically larger if they were Yucca Valley as well. But we had a total of 213 calls for service, 2 in Johnson Valley, 119 in Joshua Tree, 23 in Wonder Valley, none in Landers. It was quiet in Landers. Usually there's something up there. 2 in Pioneer Town, and 67 in Yucca Mesa area. So, and I can break it down a little more. It's almost always our medical aid calls are the largest number of calls we get, and there were 144 of those 213 calls for medical aids. And we had a few fires scattered in there, 6 structure fires and 10 traffic collisions, and then a bunch of other miscellaneous calls. So I just want to run through the stats real briefly. The other thing I wanted to hit on is a bit of a safety message. As we all know, fire season never really ended for us, and last week we had some events, and this week we're expecting even more with the red flag, with the Santa Ana conditions and the high heat and low humidity. The potential is there for some really big stuff to be happening. Out here it's pretty much always dry, but we're talking more on the front country of the San Bernardino Mountains and the forests and so on, over more in the Inland Valley. It does have an effect on us because when things happen there, they pull resources from here to go help. So I want everybody just to remember defensible space is where it's at when it comes to fires. Keep stuff cleared around your houses. I was on the Grass Valley fire up in the Lake Arrowhead area, and I was in a neighborhood where you had about 200 houses were on fire at the same time. And we just went around trying to do what we could do. We called for help, and there wasn't any help available. Pretty much the whole southern half of the state was on fire at the same time. So there's only so many people to go around, and so we called for help, and we were told, do the best you can, don't get killed. And that's what we did. We went out and we tried to save houses where we could, and the homes predominantly that we were able to save were the ones that didn't have a lot of growth right up against the house. So just please keep that in mind. It's really important. Even a little bush right up against your house, you catch on fire, it can take the window out, wind-driven stuff, you can get embers and whatever inside the house. So real important. Any questions on that before I get into the presentation? Okay. Yes?
Yeah, you ever go to Flamingo Heights?
Yes.
When? We're between Yucca Mesa and Landers.
I'm sorry, it's not on here. I didn't print up the report. My battalion chief made it for me, so I'm going to blame him for this. But that's generally going to encompass I would say by his stats, Johnson Valley, Landers, Yucca Mesa, all that area is going to be 1. And I'm sorry I didn't mention Flamingo Heights. But yeah, we do go up there. I take it you're from Flamingo Heights. Just a wild guess. Yes, sir.
I can see the highway.
The patterns of global warming are now emphasizing drought and greater brush fire areas in California. I think that really needs to be emphasized more because it's not just a dry season sort of thing. And when we took a truck tour of Flamingo Heights during the Sawtooth fire, excuse me. And, you know, there's a couple of years where it was really bad. I think that's going to get worse. And I think there needs to be more public relations effort, and maybe some, I know you guys are pressed, but maybe in the lower activity seasons going around and mentioning it to homeowners. Because it was pretty bad. I mean, we had brush tall right up to houses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we tend to get into some political debate when we talk about global warming, because there's people out there that don't believe in it. What we tend to talk more about is what the global warming has, how it affects us, and you get both extremes. You get the drought, which we're experiencing now, and right now they say there's about a 78% chance that we're going to go into an El Nino this rainy season, which is going to be the other extreme. So we're going to have more of the extremes when these weather events happen, as opposed to more of a normal middle of the road kind of activity. So the problem we have is it's always bad for us. If there's lots of rain, we have lots of fuels to burn. If there's no rain, everything's dry earlier. So for us, it's always a bad situation. I agree with you, and I personally agree that global warming is a huge issue. Yes?
So you and I are with the 97% of the scientists in the world who agree with
Yep.
you. Okay. That's cool.
Hi there. I don't remember where I heard or read, but there was one of our neighbors who had a fire in their oven, and I can't remember all the details, but I was surprised because the firefighters said that they should have kept the oven door closed. They opened it, and therefore it had an oxygen source, and it flared up. And I was wondering if you would think about having some kind of classes, or even appoint somebody to go out in the community and have, you know, some ABCs. If there's an oil fire, you know, do you put water on it or not? You know,
Yes.
what do you do? My microwave flared up, and I realized that the plug is right behind it. And so anyway, after I unplugged it, I cut the cord off so no one else could, you know,
Right.
try to use it or sell it or something.
Our website does have a lot of that stuff.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yes. It's sbcfire.org,
Okay.
and we do have a lot of those kinds of things.
Maybe the newspaper could be, you can put some tidbits in.
Yeah, I'll mention it to our PIO to get some stuff out there, but we do have that stuff out there, and yeah, you do want to leave the oven door closed.
Well, see, I wouldn't think that, you know, you'd see a fire and it's, you know, open it up, so.
Yeah.
And you're panicking, you know.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
So you have to think, be trained in advance.
Yes. Any other questions before I get on to the presentation? Okay, I did make this PowerPoint, there's one over there. You can follow along if you want. This is more geared for me to be able to look at, for bullet points, to be able to talk intelligently to you and not lose my place. Some of it will make more sense if you follow along, but I'll just kind of fumble through this. I'm not a PowerPoint whiz, and this is about the best I could do with it, so bear with me. It's funny, the sheriff captain mentioned in a perfect world there'd be a cop on every corner. If you look at the first page on here, I put the perfect world, and I put a fire station and a cop on every corner. And it is true. I mean, you can imagine how great it would be for us to have police and fire on every corner. Back on the old days when you see in the movies the cop talking on the phone to the sergeant over at the desk, and things are quiet around here. We just don't see that kind of stuff. And same with fire department. It's basically, it's not realistic. There's just no funding for that. As much as we would love to see it, it'd be great. So basically, you know, the real world is we don't have cops on every corner or firefighters on every corner. We strategically place them where we need to have them based on statistics and target hazards and things. And so what happens is our business, public safety in general, becomes a first come, first serve entity. So if, for example, we had a fire happen right here, right now, we would have fire units coming from surrounding areas into here. And what if something happened right next door, a medical aid call, like say right next door happened? Well, now you're going to have fire units and ambulances coming from further away to come take care of that. And so, unfortunately, it's the way it works. It always has been that at least the last 30 plus years that I've been around, there's no way to have the backfill quick enough So in areas other than here, I'll get into that later, it is a little bit better, but in areas that are not so resource rich like here, it really is a first come, first serve, and sometimes you could be waiting for a long time based on what's going on. So, and if anybody has a question while I'm going through this, feel free to sing out. Just basically, just some response numbers, and these numbers I put in here encompass Station 45 in Wonder Valley, Stations 41 and 42 in Yucca Valley, and Station 36 in Joshua Tree. And that's 7,000 calls on the average that were over the last 365 days, and that's unit incidents. If I was to give the actual calls, it would be less, a lower number, but I put unit incidents, because, not to inflate the numbers, but to quantify it, because we can have one incident that have more than one unit at the fire. So if I counted just incidents, it wouldn't be accurate. If we have 3 units at one fire, that's actually 3 unit incidents. So, because they're there at the fire, they're there at whatever incident, and that's what matters, is the fact that they're busy, and that's what I'm here to talk about.
And that's from 4 stations.
Yes. Okay, when you dial 911, the call that you give our call taker at the dispatch center, if you say a fire, a traffic accident, medical aid, whatever the case may be, that determines how many people are going to be going to your incident to begin with. Your classic structure fire, a single family residential home, you'll generally get 3 to 4 engines and a duty officer, like a battalion chief, that will come to that. We will cancel units or add more units to those based on when that first unit gets there, what he sees and what he determines what he needs. Or based on the report, you could have a report of a structure fire because it's just a burned food on the stove. And so we can get a call back later, well, it's just burned food on the stove, and that the one unit will continue in to check to make sure. However, you look out the window and you see a huge column of smoke going up, you may not do that. But basically, you'll get 3 to 4 engines, like I said, on the residential structure fire. Medical aid is usually 1 fire unit and an ambulance. Again, if it's something that is called in to be more severe, then you may get more units on the dispatch. If it's less severe, you may just get an ambulance only. A lot of times we get calls that are just very simple calls. Believe it or not, people call for cut fingers and headaches and things like that. We get a lot of those calls. So we'll just send an ambulance, so we keep a fire engine available to go to other units, other incidents.
Are there paramedics on every engine?
Every one of mine, yes.
All the 4 that serve Morongo Basin?
41, 42, and 36 all have paramedic engines and paramedic, well, 36 doesn't have an ambulance, but they have paramedics, yes.
Right on the engine?
Yes, and 45 also is a paramedic unit out in Wonder Valley. Not every agency has paramedics on every unit. I'm speaking county fire only here. Okay, you heard me mention about the first come, first serve thing, and I mentioned what happens if firefighters are busy. And I'll go briefly into how our system works. We had a structure fire in out in the Landers area, I think it was Landers, over the weekend. And so everybody that's in Yucca Valley goes northward to handle that incident, because there isn't anybody else. If that's the way it is, there isn't anybody else. There's not enough funding to have a station that's fully staffed up in Landers. So the guys in Yucca Valley go up there. Now Yucca Valley is a very busy area. That station, just Station 41 on the main drag there in town, runs easily 400 or 500 calls a month. So what happens now? They're gone. They're up north helping with this fire in Landers. Now we get medical aids that happen in 41's area. Now what are we going to do? Well, we have 36, which is in Joshua Tree, go in and cover 41 because 36 statistically isn't so busy. Then we call our friends over at the Marine base to come cover 36. We usually don't call 29 Palms because they've got one station, and if they pull their units out of position, then they've got nobody to mind the store in 29 Palms. So you can see how we get this chess game going where we pull units all over the place. Now, if it's going to be a long incident, usually a structure fire, a home fire, doesn't take that long. Usually it's just a few hours, and we can reduce it, start sending units home right away. But if it turns into something that's long, then we can call units from other areas to come in. But that takes time because we are kind of a ways out, away from where all the resources are.
Do you call for mutual aid from Morongo Valley?
Yes, but again, they're just one station as well. So if they come up and they're helping now, they've left their store unattended. So we're always having to keep these things in mind and juggle units, and it's very difficult. I've been in areas throughout the county. I started in our Valley Division in Fontana, which had tons of units. I mean, you get a house that's on fire, and everybody's coming to it. They all get there at the same time, and you as the first-in officer, you go do this, you get ventilation, you do this, and you stand back and you watch, and it gets done just like that. And if it's going to be a longer period of time, then we've got units in Rialto, Colton, Ontario, all around. They can send 1 or 2 units in to help cover our stations, and then they don't even need backfill behind those because they've got their own stations. But this is not the case out here. It's just reality. I'll get a little bit more into that, but those are the move-ups I spoke of.
So Landers, why wouldn't you call 42?
They go as well.
Can you tell us before you go on what areas each of these stations have as their area? You know what I mean? Like the dudes on Aberdeen.
Yes.
What's their sphere? What's their
Yeah,
sphere?
their general response area,
yes, the
is
response area
is going to be the whole Mesa area up there, everything on the Mesa, up into Landers and into Johnson Valley. And then they also back up 36 in Joshua Tree, in the northern part of Joshua Tree. And they also will back up 41 heading south into in downtown Yucca Valley.
So the Aberdeen boys also go, they do Landers and they do North Joshua Tree over towards Lear?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. But even anything in Joshua Tree, even near the station heading, south up toward the national park,
right.
They can still end up going there. It depends on what the call is and what units are available. And then we leave the whole north end uncovered. So you can see where I'm going with this.
42 would go there if 36 was busy with something else and they
Well,
got a second call?
Even if 36 is there, we have, I might have skipped over a 2 and 2 out law that we have to go by for fires. And that's, you can't have 2 guys go in to attack a fire without 2 guys outside to back them up. Now, if there's a known rescue, that law goes out the window, and we'll go in and do what we're supposed to do. I mean, you're usually not going to keep us from doing that. That's what we're paid to do, is go in and do these rescues, so we do them. But generally, the law states that you don't go in unless you have backup outside. Because we've had guys had the roof come down on them, or they run out of air, they get lost in the smoke. We've all seen on TV where these firefighters are talking to each other like normal, and there's a fire over there, you can see it off in the distance, but I'm here to tell you, you can't see your hand in front of your face when you're in a home that's on fire. Literally, just like this, you might as well have tape across your mask. And you cannot communicate with each other. It sounds like you're talking with your hand over your face, kind of like that. It's very difficult. It's not like TV. It's very easy to get lost. I crawled into a closet one time and got all screwed up. It was a walk-in closet, and I had a laugh about it later, but I could have ran out of air and got tangled up in something. I mean, these things happen. So that's why we have the 2 in, 2 out laws. So answer your question. Pardon me?
You always have to send 4 to
Oh, there can be a minimum of 4 going to a structure fire.
Well, that's why there's so many.
Yes.
Because you often wonder why they send so many guys.
It's extremely important. So, for example, a home fire in Joshua Tree, you'll get 36 in Joshua Tree will go. Well, that's only 3 guys. And then we'll need backup. Those guys coming. Now, these guys are inside trying to get something going on the fire. As soon as like a 4th guy gets there, usually a battalion chief, as soon as he's outside, then those guys can go in. Those guys are getting wiped out from heat and smoke and everything else. And we need somebody to ventilate. We need somebody to get utilities. We need somebody to swap out air bottles for these guys. We need to rehab the guys, because we all know it gets hot out here. So, yeah, we need a minimum. NFPA standards, which is the National Fire Protection Association, They recommend for a single-family home on fire, 15 people go into a structure fire, and we do not have that here. 15 people plus a battalion chief. I'll get into that a little more. Question?
Well, we don't have like volunteers, like all the firemen that are retiring. Why not involve them?
We do have a pay call program. We have a very, very limited volunteer program. I don't know why it is, but most of the volunteer agencies are more in the central part of the country and heading east. The whole West Coast is all almost exclusively full-time paid professional firefighters. The problem with volunteers is the time too to get there. You know, you have a pager or whatever, you get notified, you got to go drive to wherever you're gonna. You got to get your gear. It takes a long time, and I'm speaking of the paid guys that go to these. Now we do have the paid call firefighters that do show up, but usually it's after the fact, after everything's happened.
And they still get paid?
The paid call guys, yes. Yeah, they call it paid call because you get paid by the call. It's basically by the hour, but it's per call. Yes.
This may be off topic a little bit, but you keep mentioning structure fires, which seems to be a real problem in the desert. You had 118 calls in Joshua Tree, which is much higher than anybody else. What does your department have to do with the fire sprinkler ordinance now that was mandated about 4 or 5 years ago? Is that an inspection process for you when the house is built? How do you interact with the homeowners that build those homes or the contractors?
That is our office of our fire marshal that does that. They do the plans checks and the inspections, and they have guys that are geared strictly toward building code. So when you go to build a new house and you pull plans or you do a remodel, a significant remodel, then it depends on the local codes within the area. Some cities, like the example, the city of Fontana had an ordinance, but any structure that was built that was more than 100 square feet had to have sprinklers. So that pretty much made everything that was built required sprinklers. I mean, who's going to build a 100 square foot house? So it depends on the area that you're in, and then that local jurisdiction is responsible to do plans checks and require the sprinklers and go inspect and so forth. But for us, for San Bernardino County Fire, it's our office of our fire marshal. They do that. They provide the inspectors, they provide the arson investigators, all that kind of thing. Was there another question? Yes?
Yeah. The sprinkler system, though, is not meant to save the structure, is it? It's meant to allow people time to get out of the burning building.
It's meant to put the fire out in the local area. They have a fusible link in them, the sprinkler does, that melts, and it makes that sprinkler head pop only where the heat is. We've had incidents where kids have got up on bunk beds and hold a lighter up to the sprinkler, and they flood that room, and then the one that's downstairs below that, and so on. And sprinklers can do a terrific amount of damage. But they, yes, yes. But they do save lives. They put the fire out and so forth. But they do. The water damage is usually pretty tremendous with those things. But again, it's a trade-off there. So.
And I'm looking on this sheet, and it says 1 paramedic engine with 2 personnel. Does that mean there's 2 or 3 people on that engine?
2. I'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions before I move on there? We kind of got off on a few tangents here, which I kind of planned on. So, okay, I'm going to go over our current staffing model that we currently have, because it's going to change in September. Change for the better, by the way. Fire Station 41 on Highway 62 in Yucca Valley. That has 2 guys on a fire engine. That's a captain and an engineer. The captain's the guy in charge. The engineer's the guy that drives. One of them is a paramedic. That makes that unit a paramedic engine. Now, in my opinion, it is absolutely crazy to have only 2 guys on a fire engine. You actually double the effectiveness of your fire engine by having 3 guys as opposed to 2. Classic example, your home's on fire, you're trapped in your house, and the engineer can get the pump going for the unit, and you have 2 other guys that can go in and help pull you out of a house, as opposed to 2 guys showing up. Now you've only got 1 guy coming in. So it's absolutely crazy. Now that's going to change. I'll get to that in a little bit. And there's also 2 paramedic ambulances at that station. It's busy enough there to where there's 2 ambulances, and each of those has 2 guys. Just like your typical ambulances you see anywhere have 2 guys on them. So Station 42 up on Aberdeen, Same thing, a 2-man engine, paramedic unit, and a 2-person ambulance. Station 36 in Joshua Tree, it's just an engine only. It's a paramedic engine with 3 people though, so that's good. That's what we want to see is 3 people. And then Station 45 in Wonder Valley is a paramedic brush patrol. And a brush patrol is pretty much a pickup truck with a tank of water. It's got paramedic gear, it's got the jaws of life and so on. So it's kind of a mini fire truck. They can put out fires, they can do all kinds of things with that. And that's what we have in Wonder Valley out of Station 45. And there's 2 people on that. And that's fairly typical with a patrol as well. So now coming in September, Fire Station 41 is going to have a paramedic engine with 3 people on it and 1 paramedic ambulance with 2 people. Now they're minus an ambulance, it's moving somewhere else, and I'll get to that. Station 42 is going to have the same thing. 1 three-person engine, and then also 2 folks on an ambulance, a paramedic ambulance. So 2 paramedic units. Station 36, and here's where the changes with that other ambulance went. It has that same 3-person engine, and it's also going to have an ambulance. So each station is going to have an engine and an ambulance. Now the engines, the paramedic engines, can do everything an ambulance can do as far as all the capabilities they have for medical treatment. The difference is they can't transport. There's nowhere to put a patient on a fire engine. So that's what's coming. We just got that implemented for our fiscal year to start July 1, and due to human resources issues and how long it's taking to get all these guys hired, it's probably going to be September before that happens. But that cost us here locally out of our budget, our zone, almost $500,000 to do that. But we're going to have, I'll get to you in just a sec, we're going to have 2 more people, 2 more medical first responders on every day as opposed to the staffing model we're currently in. And 87% of our calls, fire department calls, I mean county fire as a whole, and we're probably pretty typical of that here, 87% is medical calls. And so having 2 more first responders on every day is really big. It's really good. Yes, question?
County firefighters recently took a cut in benefits for some time back. Doesn't that make it harder to recruit additional personnel?
It can. Basically, it's a great job no matter where you're at, and guys are clamoring to get hired by a fire department anywhere. We just flew a position for firefighter paramedic, and we had about 3,000 applicants for 30 positions. So the bottom line is every fire department took hits. All of them took budget hits. Most of the labor unions all volunteered to take cuts and pay their own pensions and all these things that were in the media, and then also costing money, you know, for the overall good of them keeping their jobs and the organization and so forth. Not to mention there wasn't any choices. There's only so much money to go around, so you can either be part of the problem or part of the solution. And they wanted to help be part of the solution with that. I wasn't in the labor union at that time. I was in management, so I can't speak 100% for them, but we as management took all the same cuts, although they just get imposed on us because we're not really represented.
You know, the economy took a hit just a few years back.
Yes.
Everybody had to take a cut. The economy is recovering.
We are not. We're not recovering yet. Usually we tend to fall when the economy falls, usually a couple of years after the economy takes a hit, because we're more property tax driven as opposed to sales tax. And so it takes a little time for those sales or property taxes to drop. And conversely, when things pick up, sales taxes, people like that, money in their pocket, they go out and spend money. The cities have money, but the property taxes do not come up so quickly. So we were told to budget about 3% higher than last year, but expenses ate all of that savings up. So the revenues did come up, but fuel costs and all kinds of other things have been going up. Workman's comp went up 40%. So as soon as we come up a little bit, we just get whacked right back down again. Eventually it will get caught up and we'll be in better shape, but anyway, we probably got off track again, didn't we? As far as the resources in this area, one of my battalion chiefs, Gary Bush, said we're in a resource cul-de-sac. And we really are. If you picture this basin heading east and west, we're pretty much like at the eastern end of a cul-de-sac, and going further east, there isn't anybody else. I don't want to say 29 Palms is nobody else and the Marine base is nobody else, but between 29 Palms and the Marine base, we're talking about maybe 3 fire engines and a ladder truck, which is not a whole lot. So when we need help, everybody comes from the west. And the closest units to the west, as far as county fire is concerned, is going all the way into Fontana to the west, because we got to bypass Redlands and other agencies that are not ours, or going in toward Lucerne Valley and Victorville, Hesperia, which is an hour away. So you call right away for move-ups, and they're still an hour away. And you just got to hope nothing else happens. And I've had those calls as a battalion chief where things happen and you're trying to juggle, and we'll pull an ambulance, we'll pull guys out of a fire and say, get on that ambulance and go handle this medical aid. Or we'll get another fire happens at the same time, and it gets really interesting where you got to split people up. And we've had guys show up just smelly like smoke and all sweaty and show up in these people's houses for a medical aid call, and we've got no choice. So, do you have a question?
Yeah. You were mentioning the fact that aid from the west comes from Fontana, Etowah, or whatever those places are. So does Riverside County interact with San Bernardino County at all? Or?
Well, they do for mutual aid, but I'm talking about move-ups, like station move-ups, like for long periods of time, to have those units come and mind the store for us. Those mutual aids are more for coming to the fire itself, and we do that. I don't want to say we don't rely on them, but it's a little trickier going out of county. There's a lot of, I don't want to say politics to that, but procedures to that, and I really couldn't comment that well on that. Well, we don't use the Riverside County units that much, and they're a little ways away as well. You got to go all the way down the 62 into Desert Hot Springs to get the closest Riverside County units, or out to Blythe. Yes?
At what point do you call in the helicopters or any other type of?
You mean for water drops? Well, that's more of a wildland thing, and if we call for helicopters, we got to pay for them, and helicopters are easily $3,000 to $5,000 an hour, and so we typically we have one helicopter with county fire, and I can talk about that in a minute here, but typically those are wildland fires that we use the helicopters for, and the agencies that own those helicopters, such as Forest Service and CAL FIRE, they provide those and they pay for them. And if it's a mutual threat, a threat to their area as well as our area, and usually we can negotiate some help with that. But we do use them, definitely. But if your home's on fire, you're not going to see a helicopter dropping water on your house. So, yes.
Are the paramedics on the ambulance also firefighters?
No. Well, yes. Right now, yes. Yes, they are right now.
Because I'm just looking at if you have 3 personnel and you get to a fire and you've got to have 2 in, 2 out, you're missing 1 person.
Right.
And I was just wondering if the ambulance person on the
Well,
ambulance was one of those people that could fill in.
Currently, and I didn't mention the staffing we have for the ambulance because it's kind of complicated, but currently our firefighters that are on our ambulances consist of a full-time professional firefighter and what we call a limited term firefighter, which is kind of a part-time guy. He works full-time, but he's paid to drive an ambulance for the most part. And he is cross-trained as a firefighter. The problem we have is it is very rare that our ambulances are not busy when we get a structure fire call. So that full-time firefighter that's all geared up and can go to a fire, he is with a patient on the way to a hospital or just finishing up with a patient at the hospital and he can't go. So what we're doing is we are hiring non-safety personnel to man our ambulances, just like AMR, Morongo Basin, everybody else has their own people that man their ambulances. We're going to have the same ones, but they're going to be county fire employees, but non-safety. They will run these medical aid calls, and that's going to pull that full-time firefighter off of that ambulance and put him on the fire engine, so he's not going to be stuck at that hospital. But you're right, there'll be 3 guys that show up. But before, it was 2 guys that showed up that may or may not have an ambulance with them, which is their other 2 guys. So this will give us a much better advantage of having 3 guys get there. And again, if there's a known rescue, the 2 and 2 out law goes out the window. We can go in and do what we need to do if there's a known rescue. You know, it's the middle of the night, you see cars parked out front and there's nobody outside running around. Usually if the home's on fire and people are home and they've survived it, they're outside waving us down, you know, go in, it's in the bedroom or whatever the case may be. But if we pull up and the signs are there that there's a rescue that we need to attempt, then we do that. We do not wait for those extra people to show up. That's what the tax dollars pay us for. So it's a calculated risk, but we take much more of a risk when that case happens. So, any other question? Okay, so we've probably pretty much went over most of this stuff. My next page here is problems with the staffing in this area. That's where we're at. It's if we send 10 or 15 people to a structure fire, which is fairly standard what should be required, that pretty much wipes out the whole area. If we get one fire happens, just say arbitrarily, downtown Yucca Valley, we'll have 41, 42, and 36 will go. That's both units in Yucca Valley and the one in Joshua Tree will go. That pretty much leaves the whole area uncovered for that structure fire. So something else happens, then you gotta get creative, and hopefully there's other resources coming in that can help out. But if it's a very serious medical aid where time is of the essence, you're gonna have to wait. And so the bottom line is here, we could use a lot more people out here. This is, like I said before, I've been in resource-rich areas, and I've been in resource-poor areas, and this is definitely one of the poorer areas. You also talk about driving further east, like toward the river, where you're out on just a road, and it's just you. There's no houses. There's just a road. None of that generates any tax revenue. So if you get in a car crash or your car catches on fire or whatever the case may be out there, you can be sitting out there for a really long time before resources get there. And that would be the perfect world, is for us to be able to fund areas that are even way out. I don't want to say in the middle of nowhere, because that sounds kind of condescending for people that are actually out there. But I'm
there because we want to.
Yeah, but it's true. You need resources even there. You picture going to Vegas. You get between Baker and State Line. There's nothing. And that's where our helicopter comes in. I'll mention that before I forget. We do have a county fire helicopter. It is a program that's a partnership between us and the Sheriff's Department. We have 2 sheriff's people, which consists of a pilot and a crew member, and 2 fire crew members. One of them being actually both of them being paramedics. And that helicopter can drop water. It's got jaws of life on it. It's got all the paramedic gear, and it can even transport to the hospital. So and those guys are listening to the radio all the time. So when a crash happens, like say on I-40 or the 15 way out, away from everything, those guys are based usually in Apple Valley. They can fly out there and get there ahead of the ground units and make a huge difference. Not to mention, it's one of the fire crews is an actual fire captain who can actually take command of an incident and direct resources when they're coming in. The guys can rappel down. They can do all kinds of cool stuff like that. So it's been an incredible program. We just got it going, I don't want to say off the ground. That's too obvious of a pun. We just got it going 6 months ago, and it's been great. It's costing us a fortune, but eventually we're going to be able to start billing insurance companies for our transports like the ambulances do, and the helicopter will actually pay for itself. But it's been a terrific program. You had a question over here?
You mentioned those 3,000 people applied for that one job?
For 30 jobs.
Oh, for 30 jobs. I just was thinking, okay, I thought it was just for the one job. I was thinking, well, that seems like you could probably, what if you advertise that job at half the pay, so you could have 2? If you had 3,000 applicants, then it seems like you could.
Well,
I mean, that seems to me, the price goes down. You can drive the price down.
Yeah, the problem is though, you want to get the cream of the crop, and you're not paying people to. I mean, you're paying guys to go out and save lives and make decisions, and you want people that are going to come in at the entry level and go all the way up. You don't want people that are going to stagnate, and you have to go after the cream of the crop, and you have to have competitive pay and benefits to do that. Currently, our limited term guys that I was talking about before, they can only work 3 years maximum because we don't pay them benefits and there's labor law issues and so on. Well, we train these guys and we want them, but we don't have any openings. And guess what? We've just trained them to go to another department. And so it's like trying to keep a funnel filled with water. These guys are getting low pay working with us, so it's great for us because they're cheap labor to have. But you know what? They leave. They go somewhere else. And it's been great for us because we have cheap labor, but it's good for them because it's a resume builder. But we want these guys. So the system doesn't work, and that's why we're doing this ambulance thing. Yes?
Yes. Would you please kindly address the 3-story building, senior housing, 74 single units, 1-bedroom units being built in Yucca Valley? Do you have a ladder truck, a bucket truck? I mean, how do you address the fact that there's 3 stories there? And who's responsible for it? And where is that ladder truck?
We have a brand new ladder truck that we ordered. It was it's just shy of $1 million, and it will reach that entire building, any floor that you want to talk about. Now we had one at Station 36 that would reach those as well. Yes, it was smaller. However, it's due to its age and smog standards and all kinds of other issues. It's been removed from service. But the new one will be here before that thing is occupied.
Now, I was told the Joshua Tree ladder could not hold a fireman and a rescue on the end of that ladder. Is the new one going to be able to accommodate that?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. That one on the current ladder truck it's called a telesquirt. It's basically just a ladder with a hose on it, and it's kind of a joke as far as ladder trucks go. It worked good for an elevated water stream, and contrary to what most people think, those ladder trucks are not used for rescue so much as an elevated water stream. We can use them for rescue, but they're very slow to move and so forth, and if you get people that are on balconies, it's going to take a while to get to all of them. We do use them for access and so on, and they're very valuable and very expensive. But yes, we do have one coming.
Okay, thank you very much.
And it will be here in town. It'll be actually probably at the Yucca Mesa station up there on Station 42, because the bay's big enough there. The bay here in 36 is not big enough, and the one at 41 is not large enough.
That's right, the bay, that's right.
You gotta have somewhere to park it.
That's right.
Were there any other questions?
You said you need more firefighters, and you lightly addressed the lack of a volunteer program out here. Out in my area, in the Copper Mountain Mason area, we had Station 44, which the community built, and we basically gave it to the fire department. I think they paid the $300 taxes on it per year. By the way, Morongo Basin ambulance is in there now because you guys ditched us. But we inquired about having volunteers. We had volunteers in the area, and we were told that we had to be under 40 years old. So a lot of people out there, they said that. I mean, it was like, what? We had to be under 40 in order to be a volunteer, and there were some other things that we needed to do that we did not have, and the training wasn't available. So we needed at least 10 people under 40. That's what it was.
And somebody told you that?
They did, honestly. So
well,
we have. And I guess the whole point is, and I don't mean to pinpoint, but I honestly don't, is a lot of these communities that are between Landers and Wonder Valley, I would imagine they're all willing to help themselves if only they had guidance from San Bernardino Fire.
That's our pay call program. It's not volunteer, it's pay call. And I don't know where that 40 number came from, because I just hired a couple of pay call guys. One of them is close to 60. We have a volunteer that works up in Johnson Valley that I know is over 40. I don't want to spot John Jones and say how old he is. I don't know how old he is, but he's definitely over 40. Our pay call program is the way to go, and you can apply at our office over on Airway and Aviation, or on the internet, the website. And if you live within 20 minutes of a fire station that's staffed,
yes,
you can.
We're not. They just use that Station 44. I believe they house the unit they used to take up to Big Bear, forest fire unit. But the guys were up there. It used to be very active. Of course, a lot of places were very active years ago.
Yeah, I don't know why it was closed or what. That was before my time here, so I really couldn't tell you why the decision was made and what was going on.
Yeah,
but we do have. It's basically a paid volunteer program. We do have that.
I'll have to look into it, and I could post it up there.
All agencies are, of course, competing for funds.
Yes.
You regard yours as the most prone to likely death. You don't have adequate funds, people die.
Well, I don't want to slight law enforcement, but they operate differently than we do. Law enforcement will take, their calls get prioritized and they stack up, where the deputies go from call to call to call to call. And so you can have where somebody's robbing a 7-Eleven at gunpoint, be one call, and then you can have my son slapped me, an assault call kind of a thing. Well, which one's going to generate the response first, and which one's going to wait? We don't do that. we're supposed to be, every one of our calls is supposed to be an emergency. And our calls sometimes get reported inaccurately. We've been told that we're going to a very minor thing, and we get there and it turns out like the world's on fire and all kinds of things are happening. So we treat everything as if it's the big emergency. So people ask, well, why so many guys here? Well, it's better to have us here and not need us than the other way around, right? And so we gear up toward the worst case scenarios for everything so we can be effective, because if we're not, then people die, and it's not good for PR, it's not good for business, it's not good for anything, and we don't want that. So from that point of view, I could probably argue that maybe we could use more funding from that point of view, but I don't want to slight my friends in law enforcement, because they can always use more police officers too. We can all complain that there's too much crime out there. Yes.
One last question, maybe it might put you on the spot, but we have an agenda item to consider representation from Desert Heights, and I'm sure you're aware of the Desert Heights folks up there with their situation of not really having any fire protection. Can you weigh in on that situation? Are you working with the City of 29 Palms and the Water District and the folks in Desert Heights? I mean, do you have any suggestions for the Desert Heights folks?
Well, it's the same. They have the same issue that everybody else has. There's none of the problems that they have can't be solved without money, and that area is, I don't want to speak for another agency because it is 29 Palms Fire, but I do know that the funding is not there to support two fully staffed fire stations 24 hours a day. So they have to take the statistics. Well, the downtown station generates more calls. That's the one we staff if we have to pick one of the two. And then they do what they can with the other station. I don't want to speak for Chief Thompson too much, but I would have to say, I'm in the same position. I'm the fire chief for this area for my organization, and that's the way we have to do things.
They identified $165,000 in taxes being paid by the Desert Heights residents, and in your opinion, that's not enough?
Oh, no.
Just to open up that
A fully staffed fire station for 24/7 with 3 guys on per day in county fire is $1.5 million a year.
1.5, you said? 1.5?
1.5 million, yes, on average.
For three personnel.
24 hours a day.
One of those is a paramedic.
Yes. Yeah, our budget for here in this local area, county fire, and that's from Morongo Valley all the way to the river, my stations that are my deal, and only about half of those stations are staffed regularly. Our budget's about $12 million a year. And we have one of the smaller budgets in county fire. County fire in general is about $165 million a year, and we are understaffed almost everywhere you go. Public safety, they say it's expensive. It is. The fire engines burn the diesel costs a fortune, the fire engines are $500,000 a piece. The labor's not cheap. I mean, you name it, it costs money everywhere you go. We had repairs, I had a fire engine that had repairs with $65,000 just for some overhauls on it. So, yeah, it's expensive. $165,000 isn't going to cut it, I guarantee you. Any other, when I talked to Mike, I said, no, I won't be able to talk for 10 minutes. You guys will all be falling asleep, but here I am. So, hopefully you're not all too bored with it, and is there any more questions? If there's none, I'll sit down and be quiet for a while. Yes?
Do major construction sites like a bridge over I-15, when they had their fire, did they have any apparatus or person in charge of that isn't the fire person? In other words, they just have a construction crew there and made the oops and...
Yeah, there should have been a foreman there that was making sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And obviously somebody made a mistake somewhere, and I don't know where that mistake was made. I just know we had a big mess to deal with when we got there. There were people driving underneath that with it on fire. It was crazy. But yeah, generally, most of those sites, OSHA requires, and I don't want to speak for OSHA too much either because I'm not an OSHA guy, but it does require some safety procedures. And I know we require in welding operations there be fire, like a fire extinguisher nearby, hose, whatever the case may be, depending on the thing. There's minimum requirements depending on your scope of work. If you're digging a ditch with a shovel and that's it, there's not a whole lot of safety things you need to have around. But if you're down in that ditch working on a gas line, now you have to have more safety things in place. And I don't know what their thing was up there, but it was windy and they were cutting rebar with a torch and something got away. So, but yeah, they're supposed to have Yeah. Do you imagine being that guy?
Imagine being his foreman.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out.
Okay, thanks. Sorry I went so long.
Changing subjects, the supervisor asked us to look at representation and to hear from the public, and as far as representation from Desert Heights. That area is borders Joshua Tree and Copper Mountain Mesa, and is lies within the sphere of influence of 29 Palms. And there we don't have direct representation on the MAC, but it's something that is up for consideration. So I know that Ed is here to talk about that, and maybe a couple of others of you. If you would raise your hand if you are here to talk about Desert Heights, we'd like to hear from you. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, also. Go ahead, Ed. You're holding your card, I see, and that's fine. We don't need it.
My name's Ed Valoran. I live out in Desert Heights. I've owned property in 29 Palms for 45 years. Most of it's in the city, but I happen to live in Desert Heights. And there have been things that have happened. We had an election that was turned down. 52% of the people voted against it. One of the things they had on it was adding a brush control. They turned around and closed the last station. And they increased the staffing of the downtown station. Now, they said, well, they've got a brush control there, and they talk about medical emergencies. Well, we need to look at this as an overview. You've got Morongo Basin ambulance is 500 feet from it with 2 ambulances. It takes them sometimes 20 minutes to get out to some of the areas in Desert Heights. The Copper Mountain College is using the station that was paid for by the Desert Heights and Indian Cove people. They, like you, passed a bond and built that fire station. I would like to see, leave the small brush truck in the city. I would like to see them take those 2 people and put them out in a last station and having them primarily deal with medical emergencies and integrate it with the Copper Mountain College trainees and do a collective thing to improve it. You know, the county people have been the whipping boy. They did the same thing to us in 2003. They didn't get a bond measure, so they boarded up. That time they actually boarded up the last station until they got what they wanted in 2004. You know, the economy was doing good and it was improving then, so they got their bond measure. Some of the things that the chief has proposed is increases even greater than what got turned down. I think that the county needs representation and needs to push some issues with a little bit more muscles, and I am firmly in favor of seeing Desert Heights be represented here with the MAC. I think we've got issues, and I don't think we're getting service correctly, and I think, excuse the expression, we're getting jerked around. You know, there's creative stuff. I know where I worked, we went through a 90% downsizing. I wound up loaning people out and doing stuff creative, trying to save jobs. I got people other jobs, even with other companies, so that I didn't have to give someone a pink slip. But we've got a volunteer base. We've got Copper Mountain College that's graduating over 30 people this month. 30 people that's going to graduate with paramedic, fire associates that are going to need to get certified like a student teacher does. You got to get your certification. We need to take these homegrown people and keep them in the neighborhood. We've got kids that are growing up that are being explorers. Let's make a path and get people locally here. We got one fireman and the chief that lives up here. If we get an earthquake, the CERT with Mary heads up will be what we'll have to depend upon, because those volunteers are all coming from Orange County and great distances. I've got issue with the management as it's being done, and I have handled some very large budgets before and have had to deal with issues and trade-offs. I don't see trade-offs. I see this is what you're going to take, and I don't like that. So I do hope that you go ahead and do have a Desert Heights representative on the MAC board. Kind of forceful personality, but I'm kind of wound up over this issue. 20 minutes if you need a medical, while somebody in town gets a fire truck and an ambulance there in 8 minutes. There's 4 people to handle 1 person. And the people out here in the county have to wait 20 minutes. I've had cancer 3 times. I spent 5 months in Balboa Hospital at one break. I've spent a lot of time in hospitals. If I need to have a paramedic, I want one. And I think everyone else in the county shares that opinion. Thank you very much.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Outside of the emergency services, because the representation up here isn't any guarantee that there'd be an increase in emergency services, are there other issues out in Desert Heights that need a voice?
I think we need to have someone representing Desert Heights. But to push these issues, and that's a judgment call that you're going to have to make as to whom, if you have applicants you feel is the most qualified for it. But I do think we need it because we've got issues, and the county people with no representation can't butt heads with the water board otherwise.
One quick question. I really appreciate your comments about Desert Heights. Would you happen to know what the population is in Desert Heights? How many people actually live there? Do you have an idea? Population in Desert Heights? Or anyone else?
I'm not certain, but they say that it's 15% of the tax base comes from Desert Heights for the fire department. So it's basically a 1 in 7 ratio. 1/7 of the people live in Desert Heights. And also, the lift station services the people in Indian Cove, which is another large group, and but they are within the city. But the county is approximately 1/7.
About 3,000.
And from my perspective, the share I've been investing up here, like I say, for many years, and like 86% of my property is within the city, so I'm really at a wash, but I happen to live in Desert Heights. And, and I can remember, the person I bought the house from, his wife died of a heart attack, and it took him 3 hours to get out there. I don't know, that was back 1990-something, but, that was 3 hours for them to get help, That's, 20 minutes is unacceptable. Thank you very much.
We have another, also Bobby Flint. Hi.
Hi, I'm Bobby Flint. Can you hear me? This one, okay. Hi, I'm Bobby Flint, and I live up on Yucca Mesa. And after the first MAC meeting, I did get a call from the same gentleman. I don't recall his name without looking back at my notes, but he called me several times asking for representation for the MAC. That he estimated there was also around 3,000 people there, and was inquiring with me, being at the time the president of Yucca Mesa Community Center, as he was asking for representation on the MAC. So I respectfully request that you consider adding the Desert Heights into the MAC so they can have representation and a voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, David, sorry.
I don't
sorry,
have
I lost your first name for a second.
Is this working? Okay. I was on the MAC for the Joshua Tree MAC for about 7 years, and the last 3 or 4 years of that, there were 3 renegade projects in the Desert Heights area that did not get any local input. That was the 2 solar fields that went in, and then also I keep having trouble remembering the name of that diagonal power line that went from the substation to the Marine base. What is it? The Leatherneck? Okay, the Leatherneck was handled pretty much not by the county. situation, and that needed input because that affected a lot of housing, and it was, well, it didn't have any input. And I think it was both, those three projects were rather renegade as far as representation for the local input. And that's when they needed it. And being on that Josh Tree Mac, we had periphery noises about that, but we didn't have that representation. So when the Big Mac was being thought about, I did recommend that instead of having a Burns Canyon area and a Pioneer Town representation, that they should put it over to one Copper Mountain Mesa, and also Copper Mountain Mesa possibly is in the same situation as Desert Heights, but Desert Heights does have a different problem than Copper Mountain Mesa. So it might be, does that mean that there'll be 10 board members? Or would it mean somebody takes over?
Burns Canyon.
No, Burns Canyon dropped.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Population was not there,
Yeah.
and Desert Heights had more of a demand and action as far as unincorporated area goes. So that was my recommendation. County took it up. That was good. So what can I say?
One additional would make 10.
Yeah.
Anyone else to speak on behalf of Desert Heights? I'm surprised because there's normally several people here from Desert Heights who'd like to speak. Okay, with that, we will close the public hearing. Unless anyone else have some comments on?
Just to be helpful, I guess, I'm representing Copper Mountain Mesa, and until you decide what you want to do about Desert Heights, I am happy to represent Desert Heights. I don't know anything about it, but if somebody wants to call me and ask, or send me an email, or contact me, or do something so I will say something on their behalf, I would be glad to. I just don't know anything about them. Maybe that's my fault.
Yes, ma'am.
I read an article for the newspaper, and I live in Desert Heights, and you know, everybody is spread out. Everybody lives their own little secluded lives. Nobody, I mean, I associate with one neighbor, two neighbors, but everybody keeps to themselves, and I struggle every week to try to find something to write about.
Because there's no community.
Yeah, there's no
community.
communities. Yeah, no community center, so.
I didn't recognize you. Hi, I was wondering about why, tell me your name.
Mary Reeves.
Hi, Mary. I didn't understand why the columnist wasn't here, so thank you for identifying yourself. Right.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, everybody just kind of sticks to themselves. There's no place for people to gather, like she said.
Well, their station's available.
That's not funny.
I know, I thought that was sick, I get that, but.
And, you know, speaking on, I don't want to speak on behalf of the fire department, but until, you know, we get Chief Thompson here to, you know, maybe give you guys a presentation, which he's done a lot, you know, I think it would be fair to hear where he's coming from in regards to that fire station.
Where do you all vote? Do you have a polling place, or is it all vote by mail?
Vote by mail.
Any other comments?
Just a quick comment. I just want you to know that I am in favor of what you're asking. I think it's a reasonable thing. And let me ask you, do you have a post office out there? How do you get your mail in and out? Because from what I'm hearing, it's very reclusive. People keep to themselves. But where do you get your mail? Do you have an actual zip code?
Oh yeah, we're 92277, and we have our mail. My mailbox is a mile from my house.
92277? Well, that's 29 Palms.
Yes.
Okay, so Desert Heights.
Incorporated is part of 29 Palms.
Okay, that's okay. So then 29 Palms really is your post office.
Yes.
Just
Okay.
like Yucca Mesa
Yeah.
and Yucca Valley.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay. Because arguably, we also have the same thing out there with the different little pockets of communities that don't have representation, but I think Desert Heights needs that.
Yes, we do.
I'd like to move that the council recommend that, use the mic, please. I'd like to move that the council recommend that we adopt a representative for Desert Heights.
Did we recommend a representative for Desert Heights? Mm-hmm. Is it something we want to take some more time and look at? Does anybody have a feeling on that?
I'm not sure we can. It's an appointed position picked by the supervisor.
We can make a recommendation.
Make a recommendation.
Yeah.
If you want to move and make a recommendation, that'd be fine.
Yes, I do.
Do we have a second?
I'd like to second that, but I guess I would like to have a map that shows the placement of Desert Heights itself, because like the others, I really know very little about it.
Well, it's Lear. I know where I am. Border, and then from Border to Lear is the east and westbound road is 62, or it's Winters Road. And then once you get to Lear, the west side of Lear is the Copper Mountain Mesa area, and the east side of Lear is the 29 Palms area. And we have to know where people live, mainly for like food giveaway, USDA food giveaway and stuff like that we do. So I'm happy to represent until you get it solved. I just don't know who would you nominate to represent the area?
I would like to take a month and to come back with the population, bring a map and look at the population and identify the community leaders. Mary says she has a hard time drumming up news stories.
Well, I'm like everybody else, I keep to myself too. Except for when there's a problem.
What are you doing the second Monday of every month? Could we table it? Could we table that for a month to bring back more information?
I think we need to post it on the Facebook page for the map and stuff like that, and get more people here to see who wants to do it.
We don't. Yeah.
Would you be willing to give a small report on the area, the size?
Sure.
Some of the issues that you're facing next month?
And can you prepare a handout with that, including a map?
I hope
Picture, well, you need to know where it's located, boundaries, visual.
Boundaries,
Population.
Chief Benfield can help you with that PowerPoint.
I think a one-sheet handout to educate us would be a good idea.
You're going to have to work for it.
Work for what? Just what boundaries of population and any issues that I see that we face out there.
Absolutely.
Which is the fire department.
I know, weren't you facing a solar issue at one time or coming up here?
Well, I lived out there and I didn't even know what, when I seen that solar field coming in, I was like, what is that? What is it?
I believe there's one proposed for that area.
Somebody out there cares. Obviously, this gentleman cares. And I don't mean to be rude about that. I know in my area, some people don't care what happens in their area because they're just there to sleep and eat. But some people who live in the area do actually care about others that are there. Where are you going to get your goods and services? You have poverty-stricken people out there. You have hungry people. Where do they go for their food? Yeah.
On the solar, the second group that was put in wasn't designed properly, and the winds ripped some of those off and deposited them in the property that was in front of them on the one on Lear. Mike Ernest was living there, and Jim Harris, that's also on the council with the 29 Palms, knows of the fact that the wind tore some of those solar panels up, because when they're tilted down like this, it causes a Bernoulli effect, like your hose with compression, and it just grabbed them and threw them right on the neighbor's property, which happened when Mike Ernest was living at the time.
You write for the newspaper? Which newspaper? Is that the Desert Trail? Do you write for the paper?
Yes, I just write about Desert Heights.
Okay, so
the Desert Trail in 29.
Okay, the column.
Yeah.
So would it be possible to even get some information from your own community there, who because we should also know if the community wants to be part of this. I mean, and have them contact you and tell them that we're considering this for next month. You need input to bring back to us. And that would be one way, since you don't have an actual community center, but to poll people and tell you, you know, because we can't decide for them.
Exactly.
Right.
The water department has some maps, Chief Thompson has some maps that clearly distinguish that portion of the city and that portion of the county. So you should be able to get some of
Oh, that's exactly who I was gonna go to.
Huh?
That's exactly who I was gonna go to.
Maybe you can against people.
I'll invite Chief Thompson, and I think Mr. Valorand behind you would also be interested in having some input. If there are no other comments about Desert Heights, we'll move on. Okay. The next are community reports. Did I skip anything? Yeah, where each MAC member briefly mentions what's going on in their area. Hi, Jack.
Thank you, Mike. Is this on? Yeah, I'd like to report that a week ago tomorrow, last Tuesday, Jim Orvis from County Water is the lead engineer on the Pioneer Town Water Project. Came up to a community meeting and addressed us. He let us know that the engineering study and all the paperwork has been completed. That went to the state, I believe, a week ago. That needs approval from the state. He was estimating somewhere between 3 and 6 months on that. After that's done, the county will apply for the rest of the grant money that they have available. And hopefully, sometime within a year to 18 months, the project will start. And then probably another 6 months to complete the project. So we're still looking at about 2 years down the road. But he's optimistic that the project will be completed. I did report last month that we have new owners in Pioneer Town. They have got together and we're going to revisit the 60s. We're going to do a show deal. We've listed the residents in Pioneer Town for stick horse races, stick horse barrel races, and the gunfighters are going to perform. And they're going to do kind of what the town used to be in the 60s. There's going to be some, I think there's going to be barbecue. Anyway, sounds like it might be kind of fun. And again, we're trying to bring the town back and having a few more things going on. And it sure is helping the interest in the entire local area. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, I've been busy doing some walking in Yucca Mesa and making phone calls and trying to find everybody's impressions and their needs and their wants and desires. And what's interesting about this time around in doing this is that it pretty much is confirming what people were telling me 5 years ago. The main thing that they want is to be left alone. They don't want to be involved in anything. They just want to live their lives, and there's a lot of retired people up on the mesa. And anyway, but some of their concerns are much like the rest of the unincorporated area. They don't want commercial solar development in residential areas. Some of them, we have a lot of animals on Yucca Mesa, as I'm sure everybody else does too. And they like to horseback ride, and they like to go up into, off of Black Canyon Road, and they're telling me that it needs construction, Max. And Yucca Mesa residents are also mentioning that some of the dirt roads need to be graded. And one thing that you need to understand, those of you that live on graded roads, is the county doesn't take care of everything. The county, for instance, in Yucca Mesa, takes care of Aberdeen and Avalon. And there may be a few other little things here and there. And that's with the Public Works Department. Then there's special districts. That's where residents have gotten together and formed a district, and they have a special district come in and take care of the roads. Then there's the rest of it. And guess who gets to do that? The residents take care of their own. And that's how most of the people on the Mesa take care of their roads, is they do it themselves. Yucca Mesa residents still don't want to be put into Yucca Valley's sphere of influence, nor do they want to be annexed. It's an interesting note. Yucca Mesa's always been interested in dark skies, but now things, I guess we're getting a few more houses or something, and the issue is coming up more often. I have also been in touch with Rick Sayers of the Yucca Mesa Improvement Association, and he's given me some news. First, we need to thank Nancy Salmons and Bobby Flint for their good work in serving the community, and they have resigned their positions to do other things. Rick Sayers is advised that he is the acting president who is actively exploring the organization's rebuilding options. And he's telling me that Yucca Mesa Improvement Association needs the following: a president, a secretary, a newsletter editor, a fundraiser, a groundskeeper, a webmaster, a YMIA representative to HVCC, and they need new members, preferably young. Anyway, that's what Rick needs. So if you know of anybody who has some good leadership skills that could help them out, that live on the Mesa, would be good. I do have put on our website a community survey. I do have some blanks here for those who don't have a computer that you fill out online, and then just hit the send button and it comes to me. And we're taking that. And if you want to get notices regarding when our website is updated, is usually twice a month, come on up and see me, and give me your email, and I'd be happy to send you an email. Okay?
Hi, I'm Mark Lundquist from Joshua Tree. First of all, I'd like to say that I've noticed in the 30-something years that I've lived here that downtown Joshua Tree seems to be abuzz with new business. I mean, a extensive crowd of people that seem to be in influx in our area for the businesses around there. It's just been absolutely delightful to go through Joshua Tree and see all the businesses that are alive and well, and a lot of the people that come out from the area. I kind of judge the population of out of town that are being served in the Joshua Tree downtown area by the number of Toyota Priuses they see in town. They seem to be abundant. So that tells me that there's people coming from out of the area. So I got to give kudos to the Chamber of Commerce for doing a great job of promoting Joshua Tree and getting the tourists in here for their businesses. And I hope that continues. One other thing on the item related to that is, and I'll cover the next item, which is committee reports also. There is a scheduled land use meeting for next Tuesday at the county meeting, and we're going to be discussing formula retail ordinance in Joshua Tree. We've got some input from some people that have done some work in that area, and we're going to take a look at that and see what we can do for downtown as far as an ordinance for the retail that they want in the area or they don't want. So that is next Tuesday at the county meeting at 9 a.m. Is that what we got scheduled for, Mike? In conjunction with that, it's also a county supervisors board meeting that day. If we're at 9 o'clock and they start at 10, we do have a video link if people want to comment to the county supervisors the results of our meeting. The other thing that I'm hearing from the local residents, and I just happened to run across this on an errand of my own, is the underserving of the general area. The people that I happen to talk to are from Joshua Tree at the land use counter. They seem to be frustrated with the fact that they're only out here once a week on a Wednesday. And the rest of the time they do have a inspector there each morning at 8 o'clock, and he's usually there till 9 answering questions. But if you want to apply for a permit or do anything with the building services, get answers, or move your project through, you have to wait till Wednesday. In fact, the Wednesday before last, they didn't even show up. They had wind issues, and they decided not to come out. I was unaware that the people that worked at that counter came from San Bernardino County. So anytime that there's an issue with traffic or wind issues like there was last week, they're not going to show up. So they expressed a lot of frustration that maybe we could address that with the county and make a recommendation on that. They cited the fact that the code enforcement is free. You can call them and get a code enforcement officer to take a look at something. However, if you go to the land, and they're there most days, they're there working 7 days a week out in the field. But if you want to get a permit or something that you have to pay for, you have to wait till a Wednesday to do it. So that is a cause of frustration, and that's probably something that we can take up and maybe give a recommendation to the county on improving that service. Did you have a question out there?
No, I was just going to state that also their website is wrong. It says they're open till 5 and they're only open till 4.
Okay, well, maybe that's something, sure. We can recommend to change their website on that. And that's about it for Joshua Tree. Yes, David?
Clarification, which Tuesday are you talking about, 9 a.m., tomorrow?
No, 20th. 20th, which would be a week from tomorrow at 9 a.m. So anybody that's interested in looking into a retail formula for downtown Joshua Tree or any of Joshua Tree, I think it's going to be an interesting meeting. Please show up. Okay. At the county offices.
Okay, and that video conference room? The boardroom.
The boardroom. If you walk in the lower level and go through the double doors, there's a boardroom right to the left there. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, I'm Max Rossi from Wonder Valley. The community has lately two concerns that were voiced this past week. One is the pet dumping, allegedly by Marines from the Marine base, that when they are relocated or sent, that a custom is to take their dogs or cats and dump them in Wonder Valley. So these animals have been forming large packs and are supposedly attacking people. Last night, one of our residents had all of her chickens all killed and only 2 survived. She came over early this morning to tell me about what's happened. And then also they came after her when she went to chase them away. So that's one issue. The allegedly, because we have no real proof, but that the Marines often, when they have to leave, dump their animals. We had one dog that was dumped that wandered onto our property. And so we called a local nonprofit. They came and picked them up, and the animal is doing well. But it's bad for the animal, but it's also bad for what they can do when they form these packs. So, and then the second issue that we've had in Wonder Valley is the graffiti, tagging of property in buildings and mailboxes. As some of you know, I pastor a church, and our sign was defaced this past week with satanic emblems and 666 and pentagrams and things, so we had to go out and clean them up. But this is a problem that's taking place out in Wonder Valley, lots of graffiti. So I was asked to make sure that we knew that. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. And Mike Lipsis, Landers, and also the field representative for Supervisor Ramos. And I want to suggest that we combine our community reports, officer and committee reports. We have all three on the agenda right next to each other, and it seems like it will make some economies if we talk about each one when we get to our place. So I'm going to do that now. In Landers, relatively quiet, except that after 20 years of hardly any infrastructure improvements, now that we've made some noise about wanting to leave the county and seek water service from Bighorn Desert View Water Agency, they started this morning replacing 200 meters. So yeah, we're surprised.
What kind of meters?
Water meters, I'm sorry. Yeah, our water meters.
Careful what you want.
We prefer that they don't, we prefer that they had just left well enough alone. But and then on the bigger issues is our Give Big campaign. The supervisor was up here last Thursday for the county's online fundraising drive for nonprofits, and he visited Copper Mountain College and the Morongo Basin Historical Society in Landers, and the California Welcome Center, where there was Basin-wide Foundation, 5 organizations involved with Basin-wide Foundation were there, and at each stop he made an attractive contribution and ate some cookies, and people were generally glad to see him, and he had studied up on every organization, and it was just great to have him out. It was real motivating. Copper Mountain College came in, I think, 9th as far as I'm not sure if it was funds raised or most individual donors, but they raised several $1,000s. Every organization that participated did well, and the county's goal had been $300,000, and they raised in excess of $500,000, so it was great news. And the Solar Expo, we hadn't met since that was here a month ago, and that was in this room, and then the next room adjoining, and it was really very successful. Thanks, a lot of you came out and participated, and the vendors were really ecstatic. They left with really good qualified leads. I know some of you were out there too, and I think it was a worthwhile event. They're repeating it in San Bernardino at the end of this month. And the Morongo Basin Haven, you heard last month from Ray Packard on homelessness in the basin, and she mentioned that the Morongo Basin Haven, the sort of umbrella organization that is doing outreach to the homeless out in Morongo Basin, has been meeting at one of the banks in Yucca Valley, and now they're meeting in the conference room at the county building. So their next meeting is at same time as it was, 10 a.m. this Friday at the third Friday, the 16th. It's always the third Friday. Am I wrong? Yeah, that's this Friday. So they'll be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. Feel free to come by. And with that, I'll pass it on.
Hello, I'm Gail Swart from Morongo Valley, and some concerns that were brought up to me that has to do with the county is some of the county-maintained roads around the school have gotten just blown over with sand in the last maybe couple of months. We've had a lot of sandstorms, and the kids are ending up walking in the streets. And people have asked for, of course, the street to be cleaned, since it's a county-maintained paved road. And also they're asking for some sidewalks. Now, I'm sure sidewalks are very expensive, and that's probably not something that's going to happen right away, but at least the streets, we could maybe get them cleaned. It was very interesting for me to hear from the county fire department, because Morongo Valley has its own fire department. And when I see what it costs to have a 3-man fire station in Yucca Valley area, and I see what we're paying and how our fire department runs with 4 people on at a much lower price, I realize how special Morongo Valley is to have that service. And we're really struggling, as all the fire departments are, with finances, and we're going to have to come up with some alternatives, I think, in the near future. But he was correct. The price of fire departments and paramedic services has just gone up dramatically. The drugs alone and the equipment that the paramedics have to have now is just astronomical. It's just, it's almost unbelievable. They have a little pack of drugs that's a one-time use, and it's to be able to give people different medicines IV. One pack costs $1,000, and you can only use it one time. And it's dated, and if the date goes out, you have to throw it away, or you have to recycle it properly. But you can just see from that one little incident, there are just so many things that cost a lot. And fire departments now and paramedics do cost a tremendous amount of money. And Morongo Valley is going to have to deal with that as well as the county. But to help our fire department, we're having casino night, which is a fundraiser for our fire department. It's on Saturday, June 7th from 6 to 9:30. And if anybody's interested, I can give them the phone number to call to get tickets. And it's a lot of fun. It's a professional gambling people come in and they set up tables, and you buy a ticket and you play to win prizes. But all the money goes, all the profits go to our fire department. So if anybody's interested, please let me know and I'll give you the phone number.
Now, what was the date again?
June 7th, Saturday, June 7th, in Morongo Valley at Covington Park from 6 to 9:30. Doors open at 6. There'll be food and drinks, and the gambling starts from 7 and goes to 9:30. So that's all I have. Thank you.
I forgot one thing if I could.
Oh, sure.
I did overlook one thing on my notes right in front of me, and that is I asked Elizabeth Carmen earlier this month if she would be in charge of our outreach. She does such a great job on the Yucca Mesa website, and I asked her to do that, expand that, and do that for the MAC as well, because I don't seem to be able to do that. So thank you. She accepted, and I appreciate it.
He's got one. Oh.
David Peach, also Joshua Tree. As my counterpart, Mr. Lundquist, mentioned, Joshua Tree is an extraordinary, vibrant community for its size, and most recently, to no small part on the part of the Joshua Tree Chamber of Commerce's new president, Thomas Ballstrom, who's present tonight. He's really been making things happen. I'd like to extend continuing gratitude to Mr. David Fick for his continuing concern and cooperation with not just Joshua Tree, but all of the Morongo Basin. He's really done a lot for the entire basin and continues to do so. In terms of the major projects, there's no really any new updates on those. Quick update, the professor of economics who was slated to address the MAC during the next month has been moved back to July, and he will also focus on formula retail. And quick shout out to the Joshua Tree Clean team who really keeps us looking good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Larry. Larry. The poker run.
Oh, poker run. All right. Yeah, it's Larry Parrott with Flamingo Heights. We haven't got a lot going on at the moment. We're going to have a yard sale at our association in June, and unfortunately our meeting to determine that is tomorrow. So it will be in June, probably in the middle of the month. Other than the wind trying to blow us away, that we haven't had a whole lot going on. But we do have, Caltrans is going to start a shoulder repair on 247 in June. It's a 20-mile project, and it's 1.5 miles from 62 that it'll start. Past all those houses that sit up on them rocks. It's on the other side of them. And it'll go for 20 miles in a 2-phase project. The first one, like I said, will start in June, in the middle, more than likely. This is from the guy that runs this out here from Caltrans. And the other part of it will not take place until 2016. It is funded. That's one of the things he did tell me. It is funded. It's a shoulder, to make the shoulders 8 feet wide, blacktop, on both sides of 247. They were in the process of purchasing all the right-of-ways that they had to get in order to do that. And then there'll be rumble strips supposedly put in them on the shoulder, and then when they'll come in at 4 feet and put another one so that they let you know if you're trying to run off the road. But other than that, we don't have a lot going on at the moment. We need some more people to come to our association, so feel free to come and join.
Poker run.
Oh, and the poker run, yeah. That's May 17th. Yeah, May 17th.
I'm Mary Helen Tuttle from Copper Mountain Mesa, and I think I'm going to also let you know what we've done in the past month, meaning we had a USDA food giveaway, and we served 87 families out in our area, which is quite a lot, and that's one of the reasons why we stay open. We've decided that we're going to keep our center open for the summer. Now that's just for breakfast and USDA and potluck and all the simple things, but we usually close for July and August. We're going to keep going this summer. Last breakfast, which was a week ago this past Saturday, was rather exciting. There was no power. Edison had a scheduled power outage, and we knew about it, and yes, I made the decision and rolled the dice and said, they're not going to do it. Well, everybody else had power except the center, so my husband was not happy. But we had gas, and everybody came in and was in good spirits, and we had electric by 9:30, so it was okay. But it was challenging, and it was a lot of fun. I didn't have to wash dishes for a while, so that was a good thing. Yay for me. And then as the liaison for homelessness and outreach, I guess you would call me, I did attend a Morongo Basin Haven board meeting, and I intend to go to as many as I can. One thing that I do want everyone to be aware of is on Thursday, June 5th, there's the Morongo Basin Project Connect that's going to be at the Joshua Tree Sportsman's Club, and it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., free lunch for the first 500 people. It's a Project Connect to connect people who don't usually have the resources or the ability to connect with dental screenings, senior services. They're going to have hygiene kits, medical screenings. I've put some brochures in the front, or some flyers at the table. Please take a handful and take them to your community centers. It's for the whole Morongo Basin. Mention it in your columns. I have lots of extras, so pass the word. We want this to be it's a good outreach. It's a good connect. I don't know if anybody remembers Morongo Basin Arch. They used to do the same thing. So this is they're kind of picking up, and it's in conjunction with the San Bernardino Homeless Partnership. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Make it quick, because I know that clock is slow and we are behind.
I'm going to augment your committee report as far as the Spark workshops. The Spark workshops have made their rounds. The first rounds went county-wide. There were 4 of them. One was downtown San Bernardino, one was in the Morongo Basin in Yucca Valley, one was in Big Bear, and one was in Hesperia. At my recent MBCA board meeting that we had, the report came in on how the participation went. The Morongo Basin had over 50 people at this meeting that happened in Yucca Valley.
Excuse me, David. There were 4 of our board members there at the Spark.
Okay. Well, the Morongo Basin eclipsed the others by tenfold. The participation in Big Bear was less than 5. The participation in downtown San Bernardino was less than 5. Hesperia was less than 5. Just to give. That's the report.
Thank you. 3 came from Barstow.
And there were 50 from here?
David, just as a comment, yeah, there were 4 of us that showed up at that, and they gave us those same statistics that, especially in the high-density areas like downtown San Bernardino and such, they got very little participation. As many as 1 or 2 people came. But it was surprising to me that the other outlying areas had less people than we did. We had very well representatives. That gentleman there was there at one of the tables, and it was an interesting experiment in how they took in the information. It was kind of a workshop, and each table participated in their own little workshop, and somehow they're going to compile all this information and then come back to the communities with what they found out. So it was interesting. And thanks for your report. Yeah.
Thank you. With that, we're going to adjourn. We're over time already. Thank you for coming.